Okay, welcome back. Here we go with adding and subtracting fractions. We'll just try to hit that in this video here. Keep it handy because it's probably one you'll want to review a few times because like I've mentioned, I think in the last video, I've had students really struggle with this. So we'll just do a few examples, and I encourage you to pause, rewind, go back, practice in your homework, writing them out like I do, and I think you'll get it down, but it's going to definitely take some practice from you to really be able to master the skill. Well, first of all, to fill in the blank, this is a must. You have to have a common denominator if you add or subtract fractions. We could just say add or subtract. I think we have a slide later that says that, but add or subtract fractions, you must have this common denominator. This is a big deal. It's really impossible to do it. Otherwise, you have to have a common denominator to really be able to add or subtract fractions. Okay? So we need to talk about how we do this. Basically, the common denominator has to be the same. Common denominator was that word on the previous slide. Same denominator, right? Common means the same. Remember least common multiple? Well, that's actually what this is. Now, this works out kind of nice for us because these are the same number. So, hey, we're happy. All right? Now, the nice thing about this is all I have to do is add the numerators. 3 plus 2 is 5. And then what you do with the 8 and the 8 is you keep it. You keep that number. 8. Again, in class, I've got the demonstration we'll do that I think you'll really like if you're in class to show you why this is required. It's the only way to really solve these type of questions. Adding, subtracting fractions, you have to do that. Again, don't tell me that that's 16 when you're adding fractions. You just keep the denominator once you have it the same. If it's not the same, you're going to have to make it the same, and that's what we're going to look at here in a few minutes. With this one, all of a sudden we have a denominator of 6 and we have a denominator of 4. Well, what we're going to have to do here is find the least common multiple, which is the least common denominator. All right. Well, here's how you do this. The first thing you're going to do is ask what is the least common multiple of 6 and 4. So you're asking what's the first number that they both go into. Now you can use that 20 by 20 sheet I showed you where you go across the 6, go across the 4, try to find the first one they go into. And hopefully you got 12. 12 is the first number that they'll both go into. So what we have to do is we have to change those denominators to 12. We have to create an equivalent fraction that will make them both 12. Then we can add them together. So let's do this. Over here on the edge, I'm going to write out 1/6. The dot, remember the dot means multiply. 1/6 times something is equal to 12. So what I want to know is what's the number that I multiply 6 by to get 12? And hopefully you said 2. Now, if I multiply this times 2, then you have to do the same thing to the top. 1 times 2 is 2. Therefore, what you've just created is an equal or equivalent fraction. I like to call them equal fractions. That's an equal fraction to 1/6. So essentially, what I'm going to do with that 1/6 is I'm going to rewrite it as 2/12. Now, I tried to give you a lot of space on your slide there. I encourage you to write all this stuff out just like I am. I think it'll pay off for you. Okay? But here's the problem now. I've got to do the same thing for 3/4. So let's see how I did that again. 3/4 times, I start on the bottom. 3/4 times something equals, that's got to be 12 there. So that's what I start with. Then I ask myself, what number can I multiply by to get 12? Be 3. 4 times 3 is 12, so I go 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Now the reason this works is, think about this, 3 over 3. Well, what number? This is just a think bubble down here. What is 3 over 3? What number is that? Hopefully you know that that's 1. Or up here, 2 over 2 equals 1. When you do this, when you find this equivalent fraction, essentially what you're doing is you're multiplying times the number 1. Now that's supposed to look like a 1. Kind of a big blocky 1. So 3/4 times 1 is really 3/4. You're just rewriting it, in this case, as 9/12. So you haven't changed the value of the fractions. You've just changed what it looks like. You've created an equivalent fraction. Okay, it's the same amount. Right, now remember what we do when we add. We add the top, 11. We keep that the same. Once you've got a common denominator, you've got 11/12 there. Okay. Now essentially you do the same thing for subtraction when that comes up. But let's go ahead and work on through the next couple of pages and see if we can wrap up with addition and subtraction on this slide. If I'm working on this one right here, I've got 2/3 and 1/6 being added. Okay, not the same denominator. So what I want to know is, what is the least common multiple of 3 and 6? Hopefully that's one you can do in your head. 3 and 6 both go into 6. So the nice thing is this 1/6 doesn't have to change. So this will be much easier than the previous problem. But 2/3 does have to change. So I have to ask myself, 2/3. Okay, that 3 times what is equal to 6? Because it's that, I want that. Sorry, I should have put it like this. 3 times something is 6. I want 6 on the bottom. 3 times 2 is 6. Therefore, I have to go 2 times 2, because remember, that is really the value of 1. 2 times 2 is 4. I think I can do this. Like 4. So you have 4 over 6. So this 2/3 became 4/6. And then you add the top is 5, keep the bottom is 6. All right. Maybe you're able to pause the video and do that one on your own. Let's go on and look at an application here. And once we get this set up, I would challenge you to pause it and try to work it out yourself. But I'll read it with you. The first thing I did notice, I think in your notes, I think this number right here, this 1/8. I think that I kind of messed up where I put that, and it's over here, actually, I think under the word mortar. If you would just maybe fill that in there, that's 1/8. So long story short, you've got math with 1T. Math the builder requires a subcontractor to use 2 layers of subflooring under a ceramic tile. They have to install a 1/2-inch layer of this thing called OSB, then a 3/4-inch layer, or no, 1/4-inch sheet of cement board, and then mortar it 1/8. So it says, what is the total thickness of 2 installed floors? So you have, basically, essentially what they're doing is they're putting on 3 layers of something here. So you've got maybe first layer is that, second layer of stuff is this, and then the third layer like that. So they're asking, what is the thickness of that if the measures are 1/2, 3/4, and 1/8. So if you haven't figured this out, you're going to add those values up. 1/2, 3/4, and 1/8. All right, you don't have a common denominator, so what you have to do here is find the least common multiple of 2, 4, and 8. And it's actually not as hard as it originally looks, is it? It's 8. So we're going to take the 1/2 times something, puts 8 on the bottom, and that's 4. 1 times 4 is 4. The same thing with 3/4 times something would be 2, because 4 times 2 would give me 8, so I've got 6/8 there. So basically 1/2 became 4/8, 3/4 became 6/8, and 1/8 is 1/8. So you add all those up. Remember, you add the top, you'll get 11. You keep the denominator, 11/8. And then you could leave it like that for now, but probably we would eventually like you to change that to 1. And 3/8, just changing the mixed number like we learned in the previous chapter there. Okay, I'm a little longer than normal here, but I would like to get just the last slide in, and that would kind of wrap up at least the teaching part of addition and subtraction. I just figure I should show you one with subtraction. Nothing changes here. You still have to have a common denominator. The only difference is you will subtract the numerators. Okay, watch. We got 5 and 2, so we want the LCM of 5 and 2, which is 10. Right? So if you want to pause it, try it. I challenge you to do that, but I'll go ahead and keep talking here. So we take 4/5. We ask ourselves, what number? I got a little ahead of myself and told you what number goes here to give me 10. It's 2, so that would be 8/10. So that's your new 4/5. 4/5 became 8/10 minus then 1/2. Here's what I intended to do. Put a little box there. Think about how can you get to 10. And you probably see it's 5. There's your 1. 5 times 1 is 5. So you got 8 minus 5/10. And then now you just subtract 8 minus 5. Should be 3. Denominator stays the same. Again, do not try to subtract those and say 0 or add them and say 20. All right. Okay, that should wrap it up for addition. An important video here for you. I know I went kind of fast, but please replay it until you've really got what you feel like is mastering this